He was 61 years old, sitting across from an interviewer, and he called it his last conversation of this kind. The man who'd spent 4 decades making the entire planet laugh was finally done performing. For years, people who watched him closely had a nagging suspicion that behind the rubber face and the frantic energy, something heavier was hiding. In 2025, he confirmed it himself. He'd been on Prozac since the 1980s. Not for a rough patch. Not for a bad year. For a feeling he described as a low-level despair that simply never lifted. But that wasn't even the part that stopped people cold. What he revealed next about the night he found his father dying, and the darkness he spent his whole career trying to outrun, recontextualizes every single film he ever made. This is the story Jim Carrey lived before he became the man you think you know. A household built on quiet disappointment. James Eugene Carrey was born on January 17, 1962, in Newmarket, a small town in Ontario. He was the last of 4 kids, raised in a house that was loud, crowded, and always one bill away from crisis. His father, Percy, had once been a musician, a saxophone player who'd worked jazz gigs before life demanded something steadier. He traded the stage for a desk, taking an accounting job at Titan Wheels in Scarborough that paid him roughly $8,000 a year. His mother, Kathleen, was chronically ill, spending far more time in bed than out of it. Even the family's surname had been altered generations back, anglicized after Percy's ancestors immigrated to Canada. Jim grew up watching his father's disappointment settle in like weather. Percy had the soul of a musician trapped inside the life of an accountant, and young Jim absorbed a hard lesson early that even doing everything right didn't guarantee you'd be safe. So he found something he could control, his own face. By age 8, he was spending hours in front of the mirror, twisting his features into shapes so strange his own siblings would stop mid-conversation to stare. By 10, his confidence had outpaced his fame by several decades. He mailed a letter to Carol Burnett informing her, quite seriously, that he already considered himself a master of impressions. She sent back a polite form response. Jim taped it to his wall like a signed contract. At school, he couldn't sit still and couldn't stay quiet. Every class became a stage, every teacher a character to mimic, until the principal escorted him out, repeatedly. His classmates nicknamed him Rubber Face. For a boy watching his family's finances collapse in slow motion, those laughs weren't just fun. They were currency. In 1975, Titan Wheels shut its doors without warning. Percy was 51 and suddenly out of a job. He mailed 73 applications to accounting firms across Ontario. Every single one came back empty-handed. The family's savings evaporated, and whatever was left got swallowed by Kathleen's medical bills. Eventually, Percy took the only work he could find, a janitorial job cleaning the very kind of factory floors he used to manage numbers for, earning $4 an hour. Jim was 13, and he watched his father mop bathrooms for men who used to shake his hand as a professional equal. The humiliation didn't just sting, it burned into him. Within months, the family lost their house entirely. From 1974 to 1976, the Carreys lived out of a yellow Volkswagen camper van parked near Lake Ontario. Percy and Kathleen slept inside it while Jim and his brother John pitched a tent right beside it, through winters cold enough to leave frost on their sleeping bags by morning. They washed up in gas station sinks before school. Some nights, Jim scavenged expired sandwiches out of dumpsters and warmed them on the van's small stove. The whole family eventually took night shift cleaning jobs at a local factory together, earning $32 for 8 hours of scrubbing floors and bathrooms, and then Jim would go straight to Aldershot High School, running on no sleep, wearing unwashed clothes, his mind fogged with exhaustion. By 15, Kathleen's illness had progressed to the point where she could no longer walk unassisted. Jim started skipping school to help. By 16, he dropped out entirely, working full-time beside his father for $4.25 an hour. He'd clean all night, come home at dawn, lift his mother out of bed, bathe her, feed her, and then sit with her, cracking jokes just to hear her laugh. Those jokes weren't just kindness. They were survival. Kathleen used to call him her little sunshine. Inside, he was terrified. This went on for 2 grinding years. And then in 1982, everything cracked wide open. Jim found his father unconscious in the bathroom. Percy had swallowed an entire bottle of pills. Jim, 20 years old, screamed into the phone for help as paramedics rushed his father to Joseph Brant Hospital. They saved him, but only by minutes. Later, Percy admitted something even harder to hear: this wasn't his first attempt. He'd tried twice before, quietly, during the years the family had been living out of that van. Jim carried the weight of that revelation for the rest of his life, a private fear that whatever had pulled at his father might be sitting dormant in him too. It became fuel. It became the reason he could never fully stop moving, never fully rest. But somewhere underneath all of it, something in him kept insisting he try again anyway. Years earlier, when Jim was just 15, Percy had driven him to Yuck Yuck's comedy club in Toronto for his very first real set. Kathleen had picked out his outfit, a bright polyester leisure suit, because she was convinced that's what television comedians wore. The set bombed. The room barely clapped. But Percy, even swallowing his own disappointment, drove him home that night with quiet pride intact. Jim learned something important in that failure: that bombing on stage wasn't a death sentence. It was training. On his 16th birthday, Jim quit school for good. The family was still deep in poverty, everyone working factory or janitorial shifts just to stay afloat. Jim pulled 12-hour night shifts, sleeping in the van between them, dreaming about stage lights he hadn't earned yet. On his breaks, he'd sneak in practice, mimicking Don Adams and W.C. Fields to keep some part of himself alive that wasn't exhausted. He'd once been a straight A student. Now he was angry, withdrawn, and comedy was the only thing giving him a reason to keep breathing. The family, meanwhile, was disintegrating under the pressure. His siblings scattered. Percy sank deeper into depression, and Kathleen's reliance on painkillers hardened into addiction. Jim later put it bluntly: being high on painkillers is its own form of abandonment. He'd sit at the dinner table and listen to his mother say things like, "My brain is deteriorating at an incredible rate," or "I could go at any time." Those words lodged themselves permanently in him. He learned to wrap laughter around pain like armor. At 17, he earned his first real paycheck from comedy, $20 for a 20-minute set at a local club. It wasn't much, but it was proof. In 1980, he auditioned for Saturday Night Live, convinced he'd finally made it. He never even got in front of Lorne Michaels. The verdict came back secondhand: I don't think Lorne would like it. The rejection burned for years, but it also pushed him to stop mimicking other comedians and start building characters that were entirely his own. Underneath the humor were wounds nobody could see. He was bullied at school for being poor, mocked for his clothes, and at his lowest points, hurt himself just to feel something real. Decades later, he spoke about these moments in a documentary so raw that producers sat on the footage for almost 20 years before releasing it. His pain didn't just inform his art, it became the engine running underneath it. Every wild expression, every physical stunt, traced back to a boy who'd learned that making people laugh was how he stayed alive. There were bright spots too. Some teachers at Aldershot High let him perform instead of punishing him. One art teacher remembered him doing John Wayne impressions while sketching, somehow doing both at once. In 1981, at 19, he landed his first on-screen role in a small Canadian film originally titled Introducing Janet, later renamed Rubberface. He played a struggling comedian, a character that felt suspiciously close to his own life. It didn't make him a star, but it gave him a door. That same year, with exactly $200 to his name, he left Toronto for Los Angeles. He slept on couches, lived off whatever free food he could find backstage at clubs, and auditioned relentlessly. By 1982, he was performing at the legendary Comedy Store, the same stage that had built Richard Pryor and Robin Williams. One night, Rodney Dangerfield caught his set, liked what he saw, and pulled him onto his 1982-83 tour. Jim was the youngest performer in the lineup, opening for thousands of people a night, while still only managing to eat once a day. The hunger never fully left him, but now it had a direction. Small TV roles started trickling in, barely paid, but each one mattered. In 1983, he made $50 a week doing sketches on a short-lived show called The Sex and Violence Family Hour, living in an empty apartment furnished with nothing but a mattress and surviving on instant ramen. In 1984, he landed the sitcom The Duck Factory, about a cartoon studio, canceled after just 13 episodes, sending him back into debt. Still, he didn't stop. In 1985, Once Bitten gave him his first real commercial win, pulling in $19 million on a $1.5 million budget. Critics weren't impressed, but audiences noticed the rubber-faced kid from Ontario for the first time. That same stretch of years also brought a marijuana possession arrest, a short-lived relationship, and a growing dependence on cocaine to survive all-night rehearsals, an era he later called one of the darkest of his life. He auditioned for Saturday Night Live 2 more times, in 1983 and 1986, and was rejected both times, the final attempt falling apart after a Robin Williams impression missed its mark in the room. Instead of folding, he reinvented himself again. He started building bizarre, exaggerated characters nobody else would dare attempt, including one that would soon define an entire chapter of his career, Fire Marshal Bill. In 1990, at 28, Jim Carrey joined In Living Color, a Fox sketch series that didn't just push boundaries, it dissolved them. From his first appearance, his energy was operating on a different frequency than everyone else's. Over 5 seasons, he created more than 120 sketches. But one character detonated instantly, Fire Marshal Bill, a manic-eyed, melted-faced lunatic whose catchphrase, "You can call me Bill," made audiences laugh and cringe in the same breath. The show exploded in popularity, and Jim's bits were consistently the moments people remembered. He became the first white comedian to break out as the standout star of a show built around black comedic legends like the Wayans brothers, not by blending in, but by refusing to. Behind the scenes, though, he was pushing his body past reasonable limits. To play characters like the grotesque bodybuilder Verita Milo, he'd gain or lose 20 pounds in a single week. He treated his own body like a stunt prop, slapping himself, contorting into painful positions, slamming into furniture for a laugh. Critics started whispering about Emmy nominations. His body started whispering warnings he ignored. During one 1992 sketch, he twisted his ankle mid-dance and simply kept shooting through the pain for the rest of the week. He was earning $25,000 an episode by then and had just bought his first house in Los Angeles. To keep pace with 80-hour workweeks, he leaned on Adderall, which kept him upright but was quietly pulling him apart on the inside. His personal life was fraying at the same time. He'd met Melissa Womerback in 1987 on the set of The Duck Factory, before any of the fame existed. Once In Living Color took off, everything around their marriage changed: late nights, strip clubs, secrets. In 1995, she filed for divorce, alleging infidelity and saying he simply wasn't the same man anymore. The court filings painted a familiar picture: too much success, arriving with too little balance. The show itself kept courting controversy. During the 1992-93 seasons, a sketch called Homeboys, mocking gang culture, pulled in over 10 million viewers and a wave of complaints simultaneously. Executives and writers clashed over what could stay on air. Carrey leaned further into the chaos rather than away from it, mocking everything from race to religion. After years of internal battles, he finally walked away from the show in 1994. He didn't fade out. He launched. 1994, the year he became untouchable. That same year, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, hit theaters, and nobody, least of all the studio, expected a low-budget movie about a loudmouth pet detective to reshape comedy. Made for $15 million, it pulled in $72 million domestically and another $17 million internationally. Carrey improvised roughly 40% of his own lines. He wasn't performing Ace Ventura, he was becoming him. Alrighty then left his mouth once and belonged to an entire generation of kids by the next morning. Studios stopped laughing at him and started sliding contracts across the desk. He hadn't even followed the script during his audition, he just launched into impressions of Ray Charles and Tony Bennett, nonsense on paper that landed perfectly in the room. He beat out 19 other actors for the role. The film went through its own upheaval too. Sean Young was originally cast opposite him but clashed so badly with Carrey and the director that she was fired mid-production, with Courtney Cox stepping in to replace her. On set, Carrey pulled pranks mid-scene, at one point yanking a woman's arm mid-note during a musical moment just to gauge the reaction. They kept the footage in the final cut. It didn't matter that scenes needed 20 takes or that the crew couldn't stop laughing long enough to finish shooting. Carrey was shaping the movie in real time, and nobody was inclined to stop him, because the box office numbers were doing all the arguing for him. He stopped showering. He dyed his hair. He slept inside the character's fictional apartment set. The line between Jim and Ace essentially disappeared during production. During the apartment raid sequence, he improvised so extensively the crew had to reset and reshoot the setup multiple times. His paycheck told its own story of the escalation. He made $350,000 for Ace Ventura. His fee then jumped to $7 million for Dumb and Dumber, then $20 million for The Cable Guy. But the more he earned, the harder he seemed to crack. During the Dumb and Dumber press tour, Carrey had a full nervous breakdown, hallucinations, sleepless nights, and an admission that he'd been using cocaine just to stay upright. He described himself as a manic depressive clown, someone wearing a mask that had nothing to do with the green one, the kind of mask you wear when you pretend to be fine while quietly falling apart. Merchandising exploded around him regardless. Over 1 million Ace Ventura dolls sold, alongside lunchboxes and t-shirts flooding stores. But Carrey wasn't celebrating. In 1995, he sued Warner Brothers for $20 million, accusing the studio of using his likeness in video games without his consent. He'd become the biggest comedy star on the planet and still felt like he didn't own his own image. The lawsuit ended up reshaping conversations around celebrity likeness rights industry-wide, but for Carrey, it was never abstract. It was personal. Then came the sequel, Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls. He negotiated $15 million plus a cut of the gross, one of the largest comedy paydays in history at the time. The film made $212 million worldwide. But the script disturbed him, animal cruelty jokes and material he found genuinely offensive. He fought the writers, improvised safer alternatives on the spot, though some of the original material still slipped through. Animal rights activists condemned the film publicly. Carrey kept the audience laughing on screen while privately at war with what the project had become. That same year, The Mask detonated at the box office. Made for $18 million, it pulled in $352 million globally, making it the fourth highest grossing film of 1994. The green face transformation wasn't just clever makeup, it relied on groundbreaking CGI from Industrial Light and Magic, with over 200 visual effects shots. Carrey wore the prosthetic mask for up to 12 hours a day, sometimes long enough to burn his skin. The film earned an Oscar nomination for Best Visual Effects, ultimately losing to Forrest Gump. But by then, Carrey had already won in every way that mattered. He helped revive interest in swing music, turned Cameron Diaz into a star, and proved once again that he alone could carry a film through sheer chaotic force. Dumb and Dumber wasn't far behind. Made for $17 million, it grossed $270 million worldwide and became a cult classic. Carrey wrote roughly 30% of Lloyd Christmas's dialogue himself, and the now iconic, "We got no food, we got no jobs" bit was pure improvisation. The production was a mess in the best and worst ways. One scene's filming actually delayed a real wedding happening nearby. Carrey insisted on doing his own snowboarding stunt, broke his ankle in the process, and kept finishing scenes anyway, limping through takes. Jeff Daniels nearly got frostbitten to a ski lift pole during another sequence and had to be freed with warm water. None of the money could hold him together though. Fox hit him with a $10 million lawsuit that same year over unpaid in living color residuals, which he settled out of court. Between the film paydays, he'd cleared roughly $20 million that year alone. And then, on stage at the MTV Movie Awards, he simply collapsed. He whispered that he needed a break. The crowd cheered, thinking it was a bit. Backstage, he admitted it wasn't. He'd made an entire industry laugh, and he was, quite literally, running out of breath. When Jim Carrey filmed the boat escape sequence for The Truman Show, the pressure on set was very real. Director Peter Weir wasn't satisfied with anything less than Carrey hitting his absolute limit. That single storm sequence alone took 150 takes. The crew built an artificial ocean inside a tank the size of a football field, complete with a working storm system, and slammed Carrey with water from every direction while he clung to a small boat wearing a harness that functioned more like a crash restraint. At one point, the simulated storm turned dangerously real, and Carrey nearly drowned before crew members jumped in to pull him out. And yet, when it came time to film the film's most iconic moment, Truman's hand touching the painted wall of his fake sky before he walks through the exit door, they got it in a single take. The film cost $60 million and earned $264 million worldwide. Carrey's performance was so restrained and devastating that audiences stopped laughing entirely. He didn't just act inside that artificial dome. For weeks, he essentially lived there, refusing to leave the set, cutting off contact with his own family to genuinely feel what Truman's isolation felt like. That method immersion deepened the emotional performance, but it also created real friction. He clashed with Peter Weir over creative control and reportedly asked for a $20 million bonus contingent on winning a Golden Globe. He won Best Actor. But by the time the trophy was in his hands, the relationships behind the scenes were already strained. Still, the film permanently repositioned him in the industry's eyes, no longer just the rubber-faced comedian, but a serious actor with something real to say. For Man on the Moon, Carrey didn't simply portray Andy Kaufman. He dissolved into him. He dropped 40 pounds and studied hours of Kaufman's footage until the mannerisms lived in his body without effort. He stayed in character even off camera, in meetings, in rehearsals, everywhere, to the point where Danny DeVito had to request breaks just to reset. In one late scene, Carrey injected himself with saline to physically mimic the appearance of cancer symptoms, chasing realism at real physical cost. The film made $50 million, and Carrey took home his second Golden Globe. But behind that trophy sat a marriage in ruins. He and Lauren Holly divorced after barely a year together, and he later admitted he simply couldn't connect emotionally anymore. A documentary released years afterward revealed just how deep he'd sunk into Kaufman's psyche during filming. It wasn't performance anymore. It bordered on self-erasure. Back in 1995's Batman Forever, Carrey brought the Riddler to life with manic invention, personally designing 20 different signature canes for the character. The film made $336 million, a massive hit, but privately, anxiety had taken hold of him, and he started using Valium just to stay level. Word of his struggles reached the set, and he clashed repeatedly with Tommy Lee Jones. It was one of the first visible cracks where his private battles started leaking into his public work. Liar Liar brought in $300 million, powered by Carrey improvising nearly 60% of his own courtroom dialogue. 3 years later, he sued Universal for a $2 million bonus he claimed he was owed, accusing the studio of shorting him on royalties. It was settled quietly, but the fracture stuck around long after the film became a fan favorite. The cable guy turned genuinely dark behind the scenes. Carrey inhabited Chip Douglas so completely that he reportedly tormented Matthew Broderick off camera, with Broderick at one point admitting he no longer knew how to react to him. One unpredictable shoot day ended with both actors getting mud in their eyes. Broderick's cornea was torn in the process, and he later spent 14 hours waiting in his trailer due to production delays. What was meant to be a dark comedy became, by most accounts, an uncomfortable experiment in pushing too far. Playing the Grinch was its own kind of ordeal. The film made $345 million, but Carrey spent 2.5 hours in makeup every single day, prosthetics so heavy he struggled to breathe and sweated constantly through takes. He kept demanding more retakes, chasing perfection. The makeup team won an Oscar for their work. Carrey walked away with chronic back pain and months of physical exhaustion, success paid for, quite literally, in his own body. Loss, grief, and a lawsuit that wouldn't fade. In 2015, Catriona White, an Irish makeup artist and Carrey's on and off partner, died of a drug overdose. She left behind a note that placed blame on him for emotional mistreatment and for providing the pills involved. Her estate later filed a lawsuit alleging he had exposed her to STDs, supplied her with painkillers, and ended the relationship at her most vulnerable point. Investigators uncovered missing pill bottles and text messages suggesting foreknowledge. Carrey's team characterized the entire case as extortion. It was ultimately dismissed in 2018, but the association never fully disappeared from public memory. In Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Carrey played entirely against type, no jokes, no bits, nothing performative. Director Michel Gondry reportedly wouldn't even call action, preferring Carrey simply exist in the moment unprompted. The $72 million film was shot under grueling conditions, 17-hour days with no creative safety net. Carrey shaved his head for one scene and later admitted the entire process left him genuinely depressed. The performance was raw and celebrated, but it took him months to recover afterward. His personal life brought its own weight during this period. In 2012, his daughter Jane was diagnosed with autism. By 2018, she had publicly distanced herself from him, criticizing views he'd expressed. He continued speaking about his father throughout this era, about the job loss, the poverty, the years of cleaning factory floors just to survive. Percy died in 2006. Carrey wrote a $10 million check to cover the funeral, calling it a full-circle moment. A boy who once slept in a van outside Lake Ontario, now able to bury his father like royalty. After hinting at retirement in 2018, Carrey returned in 2020 with Sonic the Hedgehog, which grossed $319 million. He joked openly that he'd come back for the money. "I bought a lot of stuff," he admitted, and he wasn't exaggerating. He earned $30 million for Sonic 3. The production reportedly went so far as to print his script in real 24-karat gold ink just to entice him back into the role, and he later said that kind of gesture, the sheer theatrical extravagance of it, is what actually pulled him back in. He'd said he was done. He never really was. In 2014, Dumb and Dumber to surprise the industry, grossing $166 million despite being savaged by critics. Carrey dropped weight to play Lloyd again. Though the project nearly didn't happen, he'd exited in 2012 and only returned after Jeff Daniels refused to do the film without him. The script was written in a rushed 3-week window, and Carrey later publicly called the finished product lazy. The production company behind it was later caught in a financial scandal involving misappropriated funds and had to settle for $60 million. The movie still sold tickets regardless. By 2022, the depression he'd carried quietly for decades resurfaced hard. He described it, again, as a low-level despair that had simply never fully left, the same feeling that had kept him on Prozac since the 1980s. In 2017, he'd nearly died from pneumonia while filming Sonic 2, a health scare that forced a real pause. He eventually chose to stop taking medication altogether, saying he'd rather feel real pain than feel nothing at all. He began speaking openly about therapy and his ongoing healing process, a choice that delayed Sonic 3's production, but reminded audiences that the man behind all those larger-than-life characters was, in fact, just a man. Back in 2007, the number 23 flopped commercially, earning only $37 million, but it left a mark on Carrey far deeper than any box office failure. He became genuinely obsessed with the number 23 in his real life, seeing it in street signs, phone numbers, clocks, unable to shake the pattern. He started researching numerology in earnest. Afterward, he entered therapy specifically to separate the fiction from his own reality, and said publicly he wouldn't take on roles that psychologically dark again. In Kick-Ass 2, he played Colonel Stars and Stripes, but after the Sandy Hook school shooting, he withdrew from all promotional work for the film, stating he couldn't in good conscience support a movie built around that much violence. His silence spoke louder than any interview could have. The film still made $60 million, but Carrey's decision to step back became the more lasting headline. By 2024, he was back once more for Sonic 3, his mustache glued on fresh each morning over a 3-hour process, for another $30 million payday. He laughed about needing the money, joking he'd bought too many houses. The gold ink script wasn't an exaggeration or a rumor, it genuinely happened. He admitted that kind of gesture made him feel, in his words, alive again. Not just paid. Alive. In 2017, Carrey stunned a Fashion Week audience with a now viral interview in which he said, plainly, "There is no me." He wasn't being cryptic for effect, he meant it literally. He'd spent years studying Eckhart Tolle and practicing meditation, and had arrived at a place where he no longer identified as a singular person, but as part of something larger and more connected. He said real peace never came from personality or fame, it came from surrender. That same year, he began painting hundreds of canvases inspired by what he called Christ consciousness. In 2015, speaking to former inmates at Homeboy Industries, he told them that forgiveness is what opens the gates of heaven, that Jesus suffered not only physically but emotionally, and forgave anyway. That idea, he said, was the wellspring his art came from. By that point, he wasn't performing anymore. He was genuinely searching. By 2025, Jim Carrey's films had collectively grossed over $1 billion. He'd won 2 Golden Globes but never an Oscar. He once said that everyone should get the chance to be rich and famous, if only to learn firsthand that it doesn't actually fix anything. His single biggest year, by any measure, was still 1994, Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber, all released within the same stretch of months, all reshaping comedy at the same time. But his soul, by his own account, lived somewhere else entirely. Somewhere quieter. Somewhere that had nothing to do with box office numbers or catchphrases. He believed, in the end, in peace. It just took him a lifetime of laughter and everything underneath it to find his way there.